It's too loud.
This is the Unscripted Podcast. We're live.
Did you get it? Can you hear me?
I got it. You got me?
Yep, we're good.
All right. Thank y'all for joining us today. And Chris came up with our topic, and we got a new TV.
Yeah, we're a little late coming on. We're trying to get our TV. We decided at our normal shooting time we were going to put the TV up here.
Yeah, I don't know why we don't decide to do those things at like Tuesday afternoon.
Because it would still be 3 o'clock no matter what. When you texted me and said it was 1:20, you said I'm on the way to the building. Or
it was 1:10.
Whatever it was. I said I've been here since 7. I literally had set my phone on my desk down from getting here myself.
And then I told you were beautiful.
Yeah, well, you didn't lie about that. You know, I was going to lie. I said I've been here since 7. I've been here 5 minutes.
I was getting here. I thought Chris would have it all set up. We're ready to go live. He's like, hey, you want to hang a TV today?
Well, now, what we've done is we've just provided job security for Chips guys.
That's right.
You know, so now they can come in here and hide our wire so it's not looking all jacked up in the background here.
Yep. So for those of you who are on Anchor or on Apple Podcast, what else are we on?
Spotify,
Ministry League app.
Yep.
We really just want to thank all of y'all too for allowing us to be on there, and so I guess our people who are looking at video, they can see the topic for the day. But why don't you tell them what it is? You came up with it.
Yeah. This idea that we've got, we come up with. Actually, you come up with it, but the not telling each other the topic beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that I've got like 400 of these in my head now, by the way.
Cool.
Right. And so this was the one that I thought about because I had an interesting conversation with a guy the other day from back home. And I was thinking about this topic from when I had that conversation. And the topic is, what would you have said to yourself 20 years ago?
Yeah.
And last week we talked about restoration.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the reason why you need restoration is because you've gone too far.
You messed something up.
And you know, have you ever thought about this before? In the biblical narrative, when it uses terms like a faraway place, like Naomi goes to a faraway place to Moab,
mm-hmm.
That's not a faraway place in the far as geographics. You know, when the Bible uses that the term faraway place, it's just they've gone so far away from God. And so when you see,
Naomi had gotten away from God for sure.
It's that Naomi had went to the land of Moab, and I mean, really and truly, the land of Moab just kind of almost is part of Israel. If you really, look at the way Solomon, when he expands his kingdom and kind of engulfs part of it at one point, and so, Moab is not like it's going from Israel to Beijing,
mm-hmm.
right? That's kind of what gets painted in your mind is like this real far away place. It's the same thing as when we had those ladies here Sunday, and you said we had 2 ladies from Pasadena. And you asked them, you said, are you from Pasadena, California?
Right.
And somebody said, I don't remember.
Yeah, she's like, no, Texas.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Wrong one. And
her friend listens too.
And it's because somebody said right after that, well, if they were from Pasadena, California, they wouldn't have been with us Sunday morning.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the faraway place. We think about, all the different political views and the different stance that people would take on morality
in California versus in Texas.
Yes, right. Exactly. That far away place.
Yeah.
And so, what would you have said to yourself 20 years ago? Because, the 20 years ago is the one that leads to when I was in school, there is. We one of the things that we started doing, you're homeschooling your boys now.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have this challenge with them of trying to get them to see, my boys, maybe it's just the Donovan boys, but tangibility. Like, why are we doing the things that we're doing?
Right.
It's easy to get them the things to do that they like to do. Like Aiden loves history. So when we're sitting down to do history, he's like, y'all be quiet. Be quiet. We're talking about, he's
the utmost important.
Yes, exactly. But when we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about, adding, subtracting, dividing fractions, and it's like there is just you can't get them to see the tangibility of it. And when I was in school, I remember we were working on trigonometry. When we were working on these things, it was to be able to understand angles and all.
Yeah, I remember trig.
Yeah, all the different
I didn't take it, but I remembered it.
Well, the thing that we did was I had my teacher was out. He was getting a kidney transplant, so he was out for like a month. Well, they brought in this old guy, and he was just like half kooky, come in with his shirt untucked all the time, and half the class was telling you stories. And he was a scientist from NASA. He had been a scientist at NASA.
Oh, so he did know trig.
Yeah, he was sharp. I mean, but you look at him and you think he wouldn't be able to find his way home.
Right.
Well, but what he talked about is he started talking about the ENIAC computer. Well, you go to DC, they have the ENIAC computer, ENIAC. I think it's an acronym for something, and I don't remember what it was for. But it was designed for one thing. It was designed to be able to calculate missile trajectories. So you can take an app on your phone and do it now, or even the little calculators like Realtor sends you. You know what I'm talking about? Like the little advertising calculators and stuff like that. All that's free now, but the ENIAC computer.
It was huge, wasn't it?
It was huge. Yeah. You can look at it. I mean, and it had all these. It was a series of tubes and knobs you had to turn, and I think it was 100 this way and 100 that way. And if you messed up one, chunk, you had to start over. And what it was designed to do was, war time has always advanced technology. We always have big jumps.
Yeah, you want to be able to knock missiles out of the sky that are shooting towards you.
Exactly. So
now they want to knock them into space.
Exactly. So the idea behind it was how are we going to calculate the trajectory of a missile from here, right? And we're going to shoot one to Moscow. And not only are we going to shoot it to Moscow, we're going to shoot it around the Earth, right? So now you have an arc. So now you got this parabola, right, that's in there. And so you have all these things, but what it was designed to do...
Yeah, this is what I'm interested in. Where are you going with all this?
Was the idea that we figured out, he said, listen, let me show you how important this was. And so we sat down and we started figuring out in the minutia how much that gun had to be perfectly aimed to shoot one back then. Now, you're talking 60 years ago, right? Nowadays, you can use GPS. GPS is a new thing. But, the Cold War, they had to be perfectly precise because you're talking about the difference in Moscow and China.
Oh, yeah.
And so 20 years ago was when you needed to have those conversations with yourself about whatever it is, right? Because it's a lot easier to have a little bit of rudder away from the shore than it is a whole lot of rudder close to the bank.
Yeah, that's right.
And so 20 years ago, what are some things that you can think of that you would tell yourself?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, I mean, when I look back at my life today, I would just want to think about, just putting God first would be the biggest thing. But I guess I remember doing let's go to Proverbs 4. This would be when I think about Proverbs 4, I think about this father. He's telling his children to get wisdom, and you just look at wisdom all throughout.
Yeah, everything in Proverbs is wisdom.
It says that we've been paused. I hope we didn't lose everybody. Hope we didn't lose you. We had a pause in there for a minute, but when we look at Proverbs, the first few chapters about wisdom. I mean, it's the whole thing you can get wisdom from it. But I look at Proverbs chapter 4, and I just look about. I would probably tell myself about verse 23 through 27. I wish I'd have focused on that more and focused my life more by these standards. And he says, "Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it springs the issues of life. Put away from you a deceitful mouth, and put perverse lips far from you. Let your eyes look straight ahead and your eyelids look right before you. Ponder the path of your feet, and let all your ways be established, and do not turn to the right or to the left. Remove your foot from evil." And so if I had to choose, man, we must be having another interruption. I wonder what's up with that. Live video interruption. Anyways, we'll keep recording and then we'll just post it later. But I think our viewers are getting off. But so yeah, man, I would, if I had to tell myself something what would I told myself 20 years ago today? I mean, I was 16 right then. So I'm telling my age. I'm 36. And 16 years old, you know, I was driving the ghetto Jeep. I had a 1986, you know, Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo baby. And
that was the first year that they were Mopar, right? Or was that the last year that they were AMC?
I don't know. So
I'm sorry.
All I know was the gas was on the right and the brake was on the left, and I knew how to put the thing in 4-wheel drive. And I mean, literally, so my cousin Kerry had drove this Jeep. My Uncle Jim owned the Jeep. My cousin Kerry, it was a hand-me-down to him. I can remember going to a vacation Bible school riding with him when he's pegging out the speedometer on this thing.
At 85.
Yeah, 85, and this thing's jumping, you know, and I'm like, you know, I said, what would you do if the police saw? He said, we're just going to go. And
we're going to vacation Bible school, dummy.
Right, that's right, but we wasn't going to vacation Bible school because we loved the Bible. Well, he loved the Bible. He's a preacher today. But still, there was girls down there in Fayetteville, Tennessee that we were going to see. I'm like 8 years old. He's like, you know, 16, 17. But anyways, I remember riding with him in that Jeep then and him trying to rag the thing out. Well, my brother bought it from him, and then I bought it from my older brother. So I bought the thing for $500. And
smoking.
It wasn't smoking.
Smoking deal.
Yeah, smoking deal, baby. And so I bought it when I was 15, and man, we rode it, baby. So, but every mud hole, lake, whatever, you know, it was going to hit it. And but so if I really had to go back and tell myself, it would be those verses, Proverbs 4:23-27, just to, I mean, absolutely just guard your heart. And that's that's really what, if I could go back and tell 16-year-olds today, and that's what I do, is it's just, your heart's so important to God, and just focus on Him. Keep Him first. I mean, I want to tell, you know, wisdom and all those things, but, you know, I can remember too being my first evangelistic Bible study was when I was 16, and you know, trying to convert a girlfriend, and yeah, you know, it didn't work. And I don't know about you, but I've failed more times as an evangelist than I've been successful. As far as, but of course, you know, what I mean by that is, it's not a failure when you get someone to come to Christ. But what I mean is I've failed in trying to get the masses, you know, to come to Christ versus and we just got to face it. More people than not they don't want to take up their cross and you know, don't want to deny themselves, take up their cross and follow Jesus. But I would just don't steer away from the Lord, and don't turn to the right or to the left. And you know, there's a time in my life when I, you know, steered away and wanted to do things that I wanted to do, and so I'm just so thankful for the grace of God. So that, I guess that would be the main thing that I would tell myself, that I just really wish I would have steered on course.
Would you tell yourself you're gonna make mistakes?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, buddy, you're gonna make mistakes, but God at one time in my life was a close second, and I was dead wrong. And you know, I was putting me first. But yeah, you're going to make mistakes, and I certainly did. I made big mistakes, and certainly you know, that those are things that I had to repent of and turn away from and come back to the Lord. I was at church every time the doors were open, but my heart wasn't. You know, my heart would be focused on God right then. But, you know, the 2 nights before, it would have been focused on what I wanted to do. So going back to the 16-year-old, you know, we sing the song, you know, remember not the sins of my youth. And so that's what I go back and tell myself.
I think that So this boy from back home messaged me the other day, and he said, "What do you think about the Masons?" And I said, "What? You know, that's a like. What do you mean, like religiously, or like from a, you know, like what do you mean?" He said, "Yeah, religiously." And you know, I was just trying to think about how to handle that question because, you know, in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with being part of a club, right? I mean, a hunting club, you know, a motorcycle club, whatever.
Yeah.
Right? In and of itself, there's nothing wrong with those things. And I was thinking about this verse from, you know, you're talking about Proverbs. I had another one, but when you started talking about Proverbs, I remember this one, and I read this one last night. And you know, Proverbs 27 and verse number 20, verse number 19 says, as in water face reflects face, so a man's heart reveals the man. Mm-hmm. Hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of man are never satisfied.
Never satisfied.
And so I was messaging him. I was just trying to encourage him that, you know, when you start lining up your allegiances in different areas, you start putting things in the basket that, while they may be good and have value in them, they're going to start you down a path, and at some point you're going to have to make a decision. And I told him, and I even used this. I said, "Hey, if you're going to be a Mason, you know, just hope next time you get pulled over by a cop, he's a Mason. You know, you can flash him your ring or whatever. And, and you're going to get a walk on that one." But the thing that I think about is that there's so many things that I would like to tell myself when I was 20, but there's so many lessons now that I've learned from somebody from the school of hard knocks, right? Mm-hmm. That I wish I'd have known, but I'm glad that I went through. And I'm glad that, you know, some of them are funny and stupid. I mean, like if we could go back, say 25 years, that'll put me at about 15, right? Mm-hmm. And we go back 25 years, and I remember one Friday afternoon, we're going over to the Martinsville Speedway, the racetrack's there. So there was one gas station back then right down the road from it that had it's the first one I ever saw, that had a restaurant.
First gas station you ever saw?
No. It had a gas station.
I know you from the hills.
But it had a gas station with a little restaurant inside of it.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? Like it had a Subway and a Dairy Queen. It was a truck stop is what it was. And
I used to think that was so cool.
Yeah, to go to a gas station and get a hot dog.
You know, one of the first ones I saw was a Long John Silver's and a Pizza Hut together.
Yeah.
I thought, but how horrible would that thing smell?
So I go in there, and I stand in line, right, because it's the one. So there's a line out the door. It's right after qualifying. And this, you know, I'm standing in line, and I get ready to pay, and somebody cuts in line in front of me, right? Mm-hmm. And I turn around, right, 10 foot tall and bulletproof. I didn't care who it was. You know, I turn around and I said, "Who do you think you are?" And it was Kyle Petty standing there. He still had his gear on. So to date it, he had his Hot Wheels. You know, I don't remember what years he drove the Hot Wheels car, but if anybody wants to look it up, they can date it, because he still had it was when he was driving the Hot Wheels car, blue and white Hot Wheels. So he comes in. So then he mouths off to me. And then I mouth off to him, and so then we're going that now. You're
mouthing off at Kyle Petty.
I'm telling you, like I just want to, I just want to talk to Chris. Like you're just, and so at this point, this is the click camera.
Kyle, if you're listening, Chris is sorry.
I repent, sackcloth and ashes. So we're going outside, right? So I'm like, all right, we're gonna fight. You know, we're going outside. I'm not kidding you. I know, it's so stupid. And I go outside.
I'm listening.
And people are lining up. They're around us then, and they're taking pictures, you know. And I'm thinking, like,
pictures with what?
With the click cameras. You click, 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 click. You know what I'm talking about? The old cameras. So there's a photo album. Somebody's got a photo album underneath their entertainment center, right, or underneath their coffee table. That
look at this redneck. Look at this redneck. He's mad at Carl Putty.
Yeah, exactly. And so you look back, and I remember him handing me that bike, because he had parked his bike out front. He rode a Harley. He gets on his Harley, Road King, hands me the bottle, and says, you know, basically, have a good day. You know, rides off, right? And you go back and you think like, that is so embarrassing. That is such a stupid, childish.
They got in front of you.
I mean, immature.
Yeah.
But those will never carry the weight. While that picture that's underneath somebody's coffee table, that one was then and gone. Even the story, the people that were there with me probably don't even, probably a couple of guys remember that I was with, and they'll look back now and think it's so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But those won't be those, while it's embarrassing to me that I did that won't be near as important as the decisions I'm going to make with how I treat my wife, how I'm going to raise my kids,
right? How
I'm going to bide my time, and the decisions I'm going to make, because the decisions I make daily are what's going to be those incremental moves that's going to send me into a certain trajectory. So when you ask somebody that question, what do you want to do? Everybody, I haven't ever really had anybody say anything different. When they know that you're talking about a spiritual thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're not talking about a job interview, and they say, Bob, where do you want to be? Cop, where do you want to be in 10 years? Well, I want to be sheriff, whatever, right? They say, where do you want, what do you want to do in your marriage, right? You do marriage counseling. We want to put the Lord first.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
Right.
We want to serve the Lord. Well, what does that mean? And so, like 20 years ago, for me, I was a brand new Christian. So I didn't hardly know anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew that I needed to stick to the church. And I'm so thankful for the people that were in my life then.
Yeah, because you weren't raised in the church, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so when I obeyed the gospel, I was in college. So that 20 years ago would have put me in college. I'm 39. I'll be 40 this year. So that would have put me in college then.
So how much knowledge did you have, like, of the Bible, of God, Jesus, prior to college?
Really, so culturally in the South, the religion saturates us, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I grew up, we went to this little primitive Baptist church up the road, circuit preacher.
Mm-hmm.
He'd come around twice a month. If he didn't come around then, you missed it. If you missed one, you missed, so, I went to church a half a dozen times a year at best my whole life. And so, and it was just, if you're saved, you're saved, you're good. And, the primitive Baptists, they have this, the tulip stuff. So if you're one of the chosen, you're chosen anyway. So it really doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah.
So, growing up, the only thing that I knew is that the fundamental things, that Jesus had died for us, that God created the world, and Noah built a boat somewhere down the line.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned from watching Charlton Heston that God gave us the 10 Commandments.
Okay.
But that was it. And but somebody, teaching me the gospel changed everything. And the hardest, I knew that I needed to deny myself. I knew that I was going to have to change. I could never fight with Kyle Petty again.
Right.
No matter how much I wanted to. And because of that, I missed opportunities. I made it, if I could go back and have a conversation with Chris, I would say, Chris, I know you're going to want to focus on yourself, and do it. Focus on dying to yourself, but remember, you're dying to yourself because you're trying to be better for other people. And what I mean by that is I remember opportunities that I missed because I was trying my best to keep cool, to keep calm, to remember I'm the one that's going to show people Jesus, all these things. But the whole time I needed, that other person needed Jesus more than they needed me to act like him.
Yeah.
And that is something that I look back on, opportunities that I missed. And if I could have a conversation with Chris, you're going to make mistakes. 20 years later, you're going to be asking your kids to forgive you for getting mad at them, for losing your cool. You're going to be asking your wife to forgive you. You're going to still be learning to communicate with your wife, and you're going to be doing those things in 20 years. But you got to remember, the focus is not you. You got to remember that when the Lord said to seek first the kingdom, the only way you can do that is to deny yourself. The only way you can do that is to put everybody else above you. But you're going to have to learn how to do it yourself. And you'll miss opportunities to be able to get people to heaven if you're worrying about yourself, changing yourself. Granted, Paul said, I buffet my body. I bring it in subjection, lest after I preach to others, I myself may be disqualified. And so if I could tell myself one of those things, I'd say, Chris, make it about other people. Make it about other people. You're dying. You're growing. You're everything. Make it about getting other people to heaven, because you're going.
Yeah.
You're going to heaven. And so because you're going to heaven, not that I'm eternally secure or any once saved, always saved, but you're going to heaven. So now take that burden off your lap and focus on everybody else because they're lost. And let that change you. Let that motivate you, the way you think and the way you act and the way that you treat people. And you let that thing guide you in your life.
Yeah. I think back to myself, and, I feel like I always made like conscious decisions that were good decisions as far as I can remember, getting past the teenage years and getting into law enforcement. And I just remember like I wanted to keep my nose clean, and not only I wanted to have integrity is what I wanted to have, and so I'd have to make those decisions not only in front of people, but I had to make those decisions not in front of people, because that's really what integrity is. It's what you do when no one else is looking. And so, like, I was a young police officer, that I wanted a camera in my car. Mm-hmm. Like, I wanted people to see the goodness that I did. But I would go back and tell myself that, like, every good decision, it's all going to be worth it. Like, choosing your wife, and continuing to choose her, serving other people, giving up your time. I remember taking, vacations to take youth kids places or whatever, and things like that. You know how it is. You spent 20 years bivocational, serving the Lord and working, but it's all worth it. Like every single ounce of everything that you did that was good is worth it, and every single thing that you did that's bad, just learn from it and move on.
I even looking back now, out of all the things that when I was doing them, I wanted to do them, but at the time, sometimes they felt like a burden. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like I'm doing this thing, whatever it is. I'm in the middle of nowhere in Honduras. I'm here, I'm doing this. I'm doing this for the church. I'm doing this for this person. I'm stuck underneath a car. I'm fixing something on, whatever. All those things that I didn't want to do, I look back and I know I could tell Chris that they were worth it. Mm-hmm. That they were worth it right then. You may want to have done something else right then. You may have wanted to go
that's right.
do something else, but I promise you, those things that have paid off, they are going to pay off in spades. And so don't make any compromises with those things, and don't look over your shoulder. It's okay to look back, but just don't stare at it.
Yeah, rearview mirror is good for one thing. That's looking what's behind you.
That's right. And so, and that's why Paul, time after time, he goes through this kind of his credentializing now as he tells the Philippians, he tells the Galatians, mm-hmm. he tells, on trial, every time, like, listen, if anybody should stand here today and be able to tell you that I did something wrong, it would be me. Mm-hmm. I stand here today, Agrippa, Festus, Felix, I stand here today because of what my countrymen are bringing against me. I'm telling you, I know exactly. I come from the tribe of Benjamin, the circumcised the 8th day, a Pharisee, as concerning the way that I would view the law, a Pharisee. I mean, all these things. And he says, they're just, all that's just behind me now. It's just rubbish. It's just garbage. And so all those things that I did, and that's why Paul says I was a persecutor, I was a blasphemer. He calls himself the chief of sinners.
That's right.
And so, you realize that the things that are behind me are behind me.
Yeah, and that goes for the negative things and the positive things. I don't care if you've taught Sunday school the last 20 years. It still needs to be taught. I don't care if you've taught 200 people the gospel. There's still another soul that needs to be taught. There's no retirement for a Christian. I don't care what you are. So forget your past, get up, move on, and keep going.
Yeah, and it'll be worth it.
It'll be worth it. This is the Unscripted Podcast.